This episode discusses a real and recent loss of life involving law enforcement. Details are still emerging, and accounts may differ as investigations continue. This video is not intended to declare guilt or innocence, but to examine the moment, the context, and the questions that follow. Viewer discretion is advised. Some dates arrive quietly. They don't announce themselves. They don't feel historic while they're happening. They feel ordinary. January 7th, 2026. Another weekday morning. Another street where people were moving through their routines, thinking about work, errands, lunch plans, anything except becoming part of a national conversation. And then, in a matter of moments, one encounter ended a life. Today on Grimy Dates, we're stepping into a story that is still unfolding, still raw, still unresolved. A woman is gone after an encounter with a federal immigration agent, and almost immediately the story split in two. This didn't happen in the middle of the night. It didn't happen behind closed doors. It happened in daylight on a public street where witnesses could see and cameras could capture fragments of what followed. Federal immigration agents were conducting an enforcement operation. The purpose of that operation has not been fully explained publicly. What we know is that a woman found herself in the center of it. Within minutes, shots were fired. Within minutes, her life was over. No drawn-out confrontation, no dramatic buildup, just a brief intersection of authority, fear, and irreversible consequence. Federal officials say the agent believed they were in danger. They say the vehicle posed a threat, that the situation escalated quickly, that the decision to fire was made in a split second. That phrase, split second, has become familiar in stories like this. It suggests urgency, instinct, a moment too fast to reconsider, and once it's spoken, the moment can never be revisited, only reviewed. But almost immediately another version began to surface. Witnesses described the vehicle differently. Local officials questioned the severity of the threat. Video began circulating, partial, imperfect, but powerful. And, as it often is in the case, the footage didn't settle the story. It complicated it. Because once people see something for themselves, even briefly, the official explanation has to compete with what the eye believes it witnessed. Before we continue, a brief note for viewers. The following segment includes footage from the incident discussed in this episode. It may be difficult or unsettling to watch. Viewer discretion is advised.
What the fuck? Dude, what the fuck? Dude, you did a murder for what?
Video rarely tells the whole truth. It has no context before the frame begins, no explanation after it ends, but it carries weight. It freezes moments that can't be undone, and it invites interpretation where certainty doesn't exist yet. And in this case, that video became a dividing line between what authorities said happened and what people believe they saw. Before yesterday, she wasn't a headline. She wasn't a case study. She was someone with a life that existed entirely outside this moment. She was someone who mattered to people who knew her, someone whose plans didn't include becoming a symbol. Friends have described her as creative, thoughtful, human in ways that never translated into official reports. And that's often how these stories go. A life reduced to a paragraph, a name attached to an incident, while grief spreads quietly in the background. This didn't happen in isolation. It happened in a city already strained by conversations about federal authority, immigration enforcement, and the role of force. ICE operations have long been controversial, especially in communities that push back against federal immigration actions. So when a death happens during one of these operations, it doesn't fade quietly. It ripples outward, through city leadership, through neighborhoods, through a country already asking hard questions. The reaction was immediate. People gathered, candles appeared, voices rose in protest and mourning. Community leaders demanded answers. Local officials openly challenged the federal narrative, saying that the explanation didn't align with what evidence seemed to show. And once public trust fractures, it's difficult to repair. If this all feels familiar, that's because it is. We've seen this pattern again and again. A death, an official explanation, conflicting evidence, a promise of investigation, and then time. Sometimes accountability follows, sometimes silence does. Sometimes the questions remain long after the headlines fade. Multiple investigations are now underway, federal, state. Each will review statements, footage, and procedures. Each will attempt to determine whether policy was followed. But investigations don't answer everything. They don't bring people back. They don't erase doubt. They don't heal grief. They only decide how history records the moment. Was this preventable? Was fear justified? Was force necessary? And perhaps the hardest of all, what does it say about a system when a routine operation ends a life and the explanation feels incomplete? These aren't questions that resolve quickly. Some of them never fully resolve at all. Grimy Dates isn't about neat endings. It's about moments where reality fractures, where decisions echo longer than anyone expects, where history doesn't feel distant, it feels uncomfortably close. Yesterday didn't arrive labeled as a turning point, but it may become one. This wasn't decades ago. It wasn't buried in old court records. It happened yesterday. And that's what makes it unsettling, because history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just happens on an ordinary street, on an ordinary day, and only later do we realize we were watching a moment that would never stop being questioned. Thank you for journeying down this darker path with Grimy Dates, because the brighter stories cast the darkest shadows.